Alrighty, friends and automotive enthusiasts from all around the great big planet Earth, you've chosen once again to hit that play button on yet another...
An all-gravy episode of V8 Radio, Kevin.
That's right. An all-gravy episode.
Nothing but.
No meat, no potatoes. No. Definitely no meat in this show.
Frivolous. It's all gravy.
I'm your host, Kevin Oeste, joined as always by our esteemed co-host, Mr. Mike Huball Clarke. And we have a very distinguished guest again on this show. When I say again, it's not that he's been here before, but yet another guest experimenting with new technology. So we'd like to welcome our good friend, Mr. Peter MacGillivray from the Bonnier Corporation to the show. Peter, how's it going?
Kevin, Michael, I'm well, thank you.
Sound good? Good to have you here. And we'll introduce Peter in just a minute, but before we do, if you've heard this show before, you know that we make the show be able to fit the automotive genre because we do an automotive trivia question of sorts at the beginning of every show. And then we tease the listeners and make them hang through the whole thing before they can get the answer at the end. So, Mike, Peter, have you guys prepared trivia questions?
Always.
I got one. I got three.
Oh my gosh.
I'm ready.
One question per guest, please.
That's right. Didn't read that email, I see. So yeah. All right. Well, because we're generous people, then, Mr. 3-question Pete Mac, we're going to set you off first. What do you got?
Hey, so there used to be this automotive competition. It was a global competition with teams from all over the world. There was one team per country. And my question is, it was, by the way, it was called the Camel Trophy. And my question is, what year was the first year that the U.S. Camel Trophy team won the competition?
Well, because I'm a generous person, Mike, I'm going to let you take the first crack
Kevin,
at this.
You give and you give and you give of yourself to me, and
until it hurts.
I don't know how to thank you enough.
I don't know if it hurts you or me.
All right, so Peter, if I have this right, we want to know what the first year the U.S. Entry for the Camel Trophy won the Camel Trophy.
Yes.
All right. Well,
this was an off-road type event, or like a rally, or
It was an off-road event, kind of like a rally, kind of like a cross between the TV show Survivor, which is not automotive nor a rally, but a competition, and Paris-Dakar, which is definitely a off-road rally competition. But it's somewhere in the middle. And if you've got a week, I could explain the minutia of the competition. But if you know, you know. So, yeah.
Right. Well, this is going to be
automotive competition.
A completely WAG type of guess. And I will say the U.S. first won the Camel Trophy in 1963.
1963. Gotcha.
Okay. Well, only because I will side with Mike here and say that I'm largely unfamiliar with the event, but that doesn't mean we can't take a shot in the dark here. Mm-hmm. And some of the clues were the way you kind of described this as being, somewhat off-road and somewhat rally. I'm thinking it was a ways back in time. So I'm going to say the early 50s, 1951 is my guess.
51?
Yeah. And Mike and I are both way wrong on this one. and there was a key. So we didn't, prepare Peter very well on this. We just said, hey, we're going to do a trivia question. And the term that you jumped over in that text was softball, by the
way. by the way, Kevin, if you were to ask some of your international listeners this question, listeners from Cameroon, for example, they are likely to know the answer because while the U.S. fielded a team in, I think, every year that the Camel Trophy was held, it really never took off here. It was not a U.S. It wasn't a phenomena here. But when I would travel the world wearing my Camel Trophy team jacket,
You got in places, huh?
people would. It was crazy. Young women would stop me on the street and be like, "Hey, man, you're wearing a Camel Trophy jacket. Were you on the championship U.S. Camel Trophy team?"
All right, so both of our answers are way wrong.
And I hope you said, yes, I was.
And I would say, as a matter of fact, I was.
Right.
So, seeing that I was not born prior to 1964.
All right. Hold
Like,
off. We got to hold these answers till the end of the show. So don't reveal too much now that we both know that we're wrong.
Gosh darn it.
Sorry, guys.
That's
okay.
That's all fun.
Not the first time. Mike, your turn.
All right, here we go.
Go burn them down.
All right. You're mine now, Peter. All right. So in 1969 and 1970, how would someone be able to get a Super Cobra Jet 428 or 429 in a Torino or a Mustang? What would you have to do to get it?
Wow. Good luck.
How would you get it?
Correct. I'll give you a hint. There was no checkbox for 428 or 429 Cobra Jet on the order form for a Mustang or Torino in those years.
So I don't know. Would you do some kind of rain dance or?
You had to win the Camel Trophy.
I've no idea. My dad was a Chevy dealer, so yeah. Sorry, I don't know. No, eBay or
eBay,
Craigslist. No, yeah. I don't know. Would you write the manufacturer?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting take. Write the manufacturer. I will put that down.
That's my final answer.
Okay.
All right. Over to you, Kev.
All right. So the question once again, if you wanted a 68, did you say 68
69 or 70?
69 or 70 Super Cobra Jet, Mustang or Torino, how would you get one?
Correct.
That is a great question.
I have to say that this question comes courtesy of our good friend of the show, Mr. Frank Simkowski.
Yeah, I knew it. Frank, and what's with this trend here of getting questions from
I'm
listeners?
the man of the people. They're reaching out to me, man.
That's what you are. Okay, well, Frank Simkowski is a huge muscle car guy, big Ford guy too. Has a Torino convertible. It's a 70, right? It's a 351 car, the white one.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. Nice car. He's been listening for a long time. He's laughing at me right now.
He's laughing at all of us.
Yeah, so, okay. Super Cobra Jets, you could buy at a local dealer. You didn't have to be a race team.
That's correct. And that's all I'm going to say.
But I'm going to say that there was some kind of a lottery situation where you had to get on a list and be selected because not every dealer got one. They were a pretty rare car, and it wasn't like I don't know if the dealers were allocated a certain number of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say it was some kind of first come first serve type situation. You basically had to show up, cash in hand, ready to go. That's what I'm going to say.
All right. So Kevin says first come first serve.
Frank, I thought you were my buddy.
Wait till you unleash all the questions Yardley's given me already.
Would you guys cut this out? I have to come up with these on my own. Peter is out living experiences and just sharing them with us as his trivia question. All right, so I'll make this quick.
All right,
so I've got one for both you guys. Recently, I've learned that there was a dealership, a Chevrolet dealership that basically shares my name, but not spelled the same. There was an Oeste Chevrolet.
Wow.
Yeah. What city was it in?
Oh, wow. Peter, since you're our guest, I'm going to let you go first.
I'm thinking that it is not in the United States.
Ooh. Peter picking up on our international theme here that we were talking
Because,
about.
Kevin shared with me that that this show is now the global reach is now pretty much complete with this show.
Yeah.
And it's in countries that I've never heard of. It's like, man, it's global, man.
It is.
I'm thinking it's Brazil.
Brazil.
Yeah.
Any particular city, or you just want to say it's in Brazil?
Well, Kevin, the first year I participated in the Camel Trophy was in Brazil.
Of course,
and we started in Manaus, and we went to Georgetown, Guyana. I don't think OC Chevrolet is in Manaus. I think it is in my favorite city, which is Sao Paulo.
Oh, right on.
Sao Paulo.
Yeah, which is spectacular food in Sao Paulo.
That's a big city. And you're right. The reach of the show is growing all the time. The iTunes or Apple Podcast, it's expanded us into 20 additional territories, including Gabon, into Iraq, Morocco, Montenegro, Cameroon, and more. So
nice.
I think we do. I will tell you the truth that the VATV videos are very big in South America. So
Sweet.
That's cool. Yeah. All right, noted. Sao Paulo. Mikey, what do you think?
All right. Oeste Chevrolet, what city is it in? All right. I'm going to side with Peter here, and I think it's outside of the United States.
Man.
But even though it's spelled differently, I still think it's going to be in a Scandinavian country.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is going to be Helsinki.
Oh, Helsinki, Finland.
Yes, sir.
Nice. Right on. We have a lot of listeners there, too.
Well, of course.
Sweden, Norway,
Yeah.
Finland, Australia. That's fantastic. All right, duly noted.
Thank you.
All right, glad we got past all that.
How about it?
This is some challenging ones.
Kev, I was going to ask a Chevy dealership question for my trivia question, but I didn't go there.
Well,
But next time.
Probably a good thing. Exactly.
Next time.
And Peter, you're joining us from where today?
I am joining you from not only Boston, Massachusetts, but South Boston. I'm in Southie.
Is that where you grew up?
No, that's just where I live now. I'm from Massachusetts originally and was in the south end of Boston. And my wife and I, almost a year ago, moved to Southie, home of Whitey Bulger, home of Matt Damon and the Wahlbergs. It is a pretty crazy neighborhood that I'm hailing from these days.
Right on.
Right on, yeah, and a pretty cool neighborhood too. I think we can hear a little bit of the street traffic in the background, which is it's all right. It's like the Blues Brothers with the L train going by so often.
No, actually, it's the planes landing at Logan. That's what you're hearing.
Oh,
Wow.
There you go.
Keeps us authentic.
And one of the neat aspects about your neighborhood is there's a community garden right out in front or down the street, right?
Not too far. In the south end, just across the bridge, is our community garden. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, so the reason why we wanted to bring you on is not necessarily to learn about the garden, which is also cool. But for those who don't know, Peter's got a long history in the automotive industry. He and I met well over 20 years ago back at Peterson Publishing when you were working with the Sport Truck Group and in the magazine side. And then you left the magazine publishing world and joined SEMA, and you were there for almost 2 decades almost, right? 16 years. And most recently have expanded into events of all kinds at the Bonnier Corporation. And today we are in this crazy time of lockdown and sequestering, and there's been a lot of people talking about speculation on, will we have Major League Baseball again? Will we have, public events? And I don't really want to get into that speculation too much because there's enough of that. But you recently authored a really cool article that was shared on LinkedIn. And you were talking about kind of the future and the importance of, in this case, automotive trade events, but I will say automotive enthusiast events as well. And you used a couple of terms that I wanted to kind of explore and kind of get the gist of that article. So for those, because in the Bonnier fold, you guys have had some huge ones like the Global Automotive Salon in Saudi, which I was fortunate enough to be a part of. And then also more, kind of grassroots level enthusiast events like there's some Jeep events. There's the four-wheel jamboree. There's the off-road expo. There's the Street Machine Nationals. Yeah. So you guys serve, people that are big time, manufacturers that are displaying stuff all the way down to, consumers walking in and attending these kind of events. So in a lot of this, quarantined nonsense that we're all going through, we've been doing a lot of digital communication and screen time and Zoom meetings. But your article kind of talked about how that's not really the wave of the future for enthusiast or trade events, right?
That's right. And, I did that for a lot of reasons, not least of which is I've got a lot of time on my hands right now because for the short term, we're not producing some of those great events like the Jeep Invasion and the Street Machine Nationals and the four-wheel jamborees. We're on hold for the moment. But as soon as the planets align and it's safe to go back outside, people are going to flock to all of these great events and more that we've always enjoyed. But it's during this time that some of the people in the events industry are asking the question, and maybe they're doing it just to be provocative. Maybe they've got a lot of time on their hands too, and they just want to ask big questions. But they're asking these questions like, "Are events dead?" and "Are our careers over?" and silly things like that. Which, okay, everybody is entitled to their own opinions, but I was just reading this kind of stuff on all the different social media channels, and that's probably a big mistake. Because I should be listening to podcasts like this, but I'm reading all kinds of kind of crazy opinions, and I was like, you know what? And I'm in a lot of groups that are occupied by very successful consumer and trade show producers. And I was just like, nobody is stepping up and stating the obvious. Nobody's kind of putting a line in the sand and saying, you know what? Virtual events, they're great, they're cool, but they will never replace the real thing. They will never. And so there I said it. And I said it in a very straightforward way. And, it'll probably end up in my obituary as that guy that said that, nothing will ever replace the horse and buggy. But I did. I said it. I was like, yeah, no, television won't replace radio. The internet won't replace television or radio. And virtual events, virtual racing and virtual shows won't replace the real deal. You just, sorry, I see a lot of videos from Cars and Coffee, but there's nothing like being there, experiencing it firsthand. There's nothing like being at any of these events that we all know and love and enjoy, and getting to experience the burn in your nostrils, the smoke in your eyes, and the human interaction of bench racing and seeing really cool people that build really cool cars, seeing them firsthand. You just can't replace that virtually. And so yeah, I kind of took that stand, and I'm flattered by all of the notoriety and response that it got from different stakeholders that we know and love in the industry, because they've actually, and like some really important people have reacted to it and messaged me and posted comments and whatnot, and they're like, yeah, no kidding, Peter, you're right. You're right. The computer will not replace a real event. It's just not gonna. It can supplement it, it can enhance it, but it can't replace it. So I obviously am kind of old school in the event business, and I feel strongly about it. And I think I wrote that thing 2 weeks ago, and I feel just as strongly today as I did then. Maybe stronger, because a lot of smart people read it and responded to it, and didn't tell me I was a complete idiot. So that's new to me.
It's very different from when I write.
And when I pushed send on that thing, I really expected a mixed bag of reactions, and I've really been I don't know, touched by all the support and all the people who actually embraced it and told me they felt better having the benefit of reading it, and that was just wildly flattering to me. So
yeah, and that's honestly, that's how I felt, and that's why I reached out to you about doing this. And I think part of it is you may have thought, typically when you see an article that's written by somebody in that industry, that it's a self-serving article. It's going to be, of course, Peter MacGillivray is going to write a positive thing about events. He's in the event business. But then when you read it, and you're like, no, this is a genuine feeling, right? This is clearly the reason why these things are so successful is articulated there, and it's not trying to sell your events. It's in general. It's all, and it's kind of speaks to the human condition about how we like to get together and like to do stuff and share those experiences. So I thought it was very cool. I also think that this might be an interesting time, while we have you here, to chat a little bit about what makes a successful experience at some of these events, because using a car show or a trade event, you always have people that are attendees that say, oh, that was the best thing ever, and then you have others that say that was a giant waste of time, and I don't know why I'm here, and I don't know why we spent the money. And I will use I guess the jumping off point will be, let's talk about trade events for companies. And I know that it doesn't matter if it's a racing show, or if it's a cooking manufacturer show or a home builder show or whatever. I noticed a trend where you seem to have the decision makers who are cutting the checks to be there, are generally the ones that want to invest and want to get the most out of it. But when the show finally opens and you're walking down the hall and you're looking at the exhibits, you see people that are employees, but some people are active and you could tell they're really getting something out of it. And then you see people that are sitting on a stool looking at their phone and not doing anything. So what do you tell companies that are going to be investing in these types of shows to get those experiences that make them what you believe are the great experiences?
Well, I tell them a lot of things, but I think that the first thing I tell them is, do not treat this like a fishing trip. Don't think that you're just going to load up and show up in your booth, and then there's going to be a school of people walking by, and that you're going to catch them. Because You might, and you might even catch a buyer from some giant company that's going to buy every product that you produce for the next 10 years. But that's probably not going to happen unless you do some things in advance. And so my advice to people who are investing in a trade show is to have a plan, to sit down with your team or yourself, but to come up with a plan. First and foremost, what's your goal? Is your goal, oh, I'm there because I'm following my competition? Or is your goal to go there and meet new people? Is your goal to go there and launch a product, or to meet your existing client base, or all of the above? But the point is, have a goal and write it down and communicate the goal with your wife, the team that you're bringing, includes your wife. I mean, make sure everybody knows what the goal is and what is success. Believe it or not, a lot of people don't go through that process, and if you don't go there with an idea of what success means exactly, it's likely that you're not going to get to that place or achieve it or even come close to it, because it wasn't articulated, it wasn't planned. It was like, well, I'm going fishing, and the plan, the goal is to fill my boat with fish and come home and sell them or eat them or do whatever. Yeah, you can't treat your trade show like a fishing trip. Go there with a plan. Go with there some goals. Everybody's goal is different. And one of the mistakes that trade show producers make is they assume that everybody's goal is the same. And so a lot of shows are very cookie cutter. The best shows have options for you, and they anticipate a wide range of goals, and they help you as a customer, as an exhibitor, plug into these options that will make you successful. Whether you're a big company or a small company, a legacy company, meaning you've exhibited there for years and years and years, or a brand new company, a company that this is your first trade show. There are paths and solutions for you, regardless of who you are. You just need to know what your goal is, and you need to share it with your team. And the guy that sold you the booth, you need to talk to them about it and say, this is my goal. What can I do to achieve my goal? That's part of the homework you do. You got to do more than just show up. You got to think about it a little bit and not just be there because your competition is, or you heard it was a good idea. If you make that little extra effort, you are going to be happier than if you did not, regardless of the show.
I think that's great advice. And I think a lot of companies have a disconnect where a handful of people might know what the goal is, but the person that was just brought there to, maybe their function is to help set the booth up and maintain the display. And they might not have an active sales role, or they might not have a role in engineering or manufacturing at their day job back in reality. But even they need to know exactly why they're there, because there's this fringe thing that happens, after hours, before hours, walking up and down the hallways, where if you're primed and open to it, business and success can happen at any time.
Right. Yeah. On the floor, off the floor, before the show, after the show, it is all part of that investment. And the best shows have before hours activities and networking, and certainly they've got the activity during the show and after hours. It really should be a kind of a holistic type of approach, and everybody should be working towards the same goal. So, and the good show producers, they'll be there for you and they'll embrace you and try and help you achieve your goals. And it sounds kind of obvious and stupid, but you'd be amazed with how many people come to some big shows and make a big investment and spend a lot of time and effort. And when you show up and ask them, hey, what's your goal here? They can't tell you, or they'll give you, you'll talk to 3 people from their company and they all have a different goal. But they can't tell you what the big overriding North Star is. So do that work, and you'll be wildly successful.
Do you find that your team at Bonnier is having those conversations with the exhibitors that populate the vast variety of events that you guys put on?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, because at the end of the day, while we enjoy doing business with some of the most prestigious and biggest brands and companies in the industry, we really are about small companies. And I'd like to think that our obligation is to help a small company become a big company someday. And you don't do that without embracing them from the get-go and help them be successful, be their partner, and get them from point A to point B over 1 show, 3 shows, 6 shows, whatever it is, to be there for them and help them make some money, and help them connect with people and sell product and create a brand. That's kind of the name of the game. That's what we're all about.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's any kind of secret sauce if you're exhibiting at a consumer level show? So if you're at the Off-Road Expo, for example, at Pomona, one of your events, you have a lot of general public coming through. These are enthusiasts looking to see new stuff and maybe get a deal. I mean, what do you tell the exhibitors there?
Whether it's at the Off-Road Expo or the Sand Sports Super Show or the Street Machine Nationals or any of the shows that we do or that I've ever done, really it's about authenticity. And I've seen a lot of really crazy things get introduced at the shows that I've been a part of. And I got to this place, and really it was around the advent of social media. Do you remember when some blogs and whatnot would be the 10 dumbest ideas from XYZ show or the 10 stupidest cars from this and that. And that really ticked me off because I always thought that the shows that I was a part of were kind of safe zones, and they were places where you could go with an outrageous idea and roll it out. And, there's some that are better than others, but if you're willing to go there and invest in displaying something kind of kooky, something cutting edge, I say more power to you. And it really, really rubbed me the wrong way when different people would post things and make fun of somebody really just trying something new. I really think that those people who are innovators and who are trying to push the limits in terms of technology and design, they should be celebrated, not ridiculed. So, I don't know. I throw that out there as an observation, as another point of view about. I don't think conformity does any industry or anything any good. I think being true to yourself, being authentic to the market, and having fun and doing things for the right reasons, engaging, authenticity, risk taking, that's all admirable stuff.
Yeah, I think you're right. And, we know that a lot of those blog media that put those type of pieces out there, that's clickbait. They're just looking for clicks. But I think this concept plays right into that article you wrote, because if I'm gonna, consume a show digitally, I'm seeing it through a filter. I'm seeing it through somebody else's lens, somebody else's camera, and I love the fact that, for example, at your time at SEMA, you were able to expand the media coverage tremendously of that event and share it with people that couldn't go. People like Mike, Mike's been to one SEMA event so far, but had followed it for years. But that's very, very different than seeing things with your own two eyes. Especially when it comes to,
I think that's a great point.
Just looking at your article, and one of the reasons why, these things, they don't translate that well.
No, and you're being somebody else is interpreting it for you, whether it's through the lens, physically the lens that they're using to shoot it, or the words that they're using to describe it. There's nothing like being there firsthand, meeting the builder, talking to the painter, just smelling the paint, smelling the upholstery, whatever it is, seeing the stitching. When you can see that firsthand and curate that experience on your own, I think that's the best way. And you reminded me of a story, Kev. When we were in Riyadh, and I don't, forgive me if you even went there with me, but there was a Cars and Coffee there, and it was really cool because I connected with the guy who organized this Cars and Coffee. He actually produces a custom car show in Riyadh. He's been doing it for years, and so it was important for me to seek him out and meet him because a lot of people were making a big deal about the show we were working on, which was a big deal. But it wasn't the first car show in the country or in even the city. There was this other guy who'd been doing them for years and years and years. And so I found him and I connected with him, and it was really cool. He hosts this Cars and Coffee at one of the malls, and so I would show up at his Cars and Coffee because I was there for months and months and months. And what a great way to pass your time. And every time I'd go, he'd be like, "Hey, you're a special guest. You have to give an award." Mm. And the first time I went, it was easy for me. Everybody kind of gathered around. I was like, "Okay, who's the youngest car owner here? And there was some like 17-year-old kid who had some crazy car. Well, obviously, I'm going to give him the prize. Well, the next time I went to the show, and he did the same thing. He dragged me up on stage, and he was like, "Come on, you got to give the award out." Well, I couldn't do who's the youngest car owner here because I already did that the first time. Mm-hmm. So there was this guy who made his own car, mm-hmm. and it's kind of this Back to the Future DeLorean-ish kind of thing.
Yeah, it was crazy.
If you saw that just online, it would be the type of thing that would wind up on one of those lists that people made fun of. But to be there and to meet the guy who built it and to hear his story, I mean, it brought tears to my eyes at the time. It was the most genuine, authentic, heartwarming, meaningful thing that I saw that day. And he went home with the trophy. And I told him, when I handed him the trophy, I was like, "Okay, you know what this means. You have to come to this show every week now." Because he had never been. It was his first time at that show. And I was like, "Okay, man, you go home with the trophy. You have to come back here time and time again." And bring
fair.
So yeah, car shows, it's in our blood. It's in our DNA. I love the media that comes to the shows that I produce and that I'm a part of. I rely on them a great deal. When I started at SEMA, I didn't know anything about the show business, and you could argue I still don't. But I know a thing or two, or I'd like to think. I know a thing or two about media and the people who produce media and their role and the importance that they play in all of this. So they carry a lot of weight. But it's a ecosystem. It's, it's not the be all end all. It's got to be a part of something real. That's where I'm coming from.
Well, yeah. And I think SEMA over the years had always had, a few, pages here and there in Hot Rod magazine, and then eventually a couple of other, restyling type magazines, but it was never the subject of its own specials, and its own everything. And what was interesting for me was to kind of go along for that ride over the years. And Mike, your experience, you were purely a media consumer of that event. How did it stack up to when you actually stepped foot in the door? Well,
I got to tell you, I've seen some SEMA coverage on TV, and it was really cool. And I was thinking, man, this is a huge show. It's terrific. But I'll tell you what, nothing in the world compares to actually setting foot inside that convention center for the first time and seeing how expansive it is, and just it's complete sensory overload, especially when you get to go up on the SEMA Central stage and talk to the MC about your experience so far.
Sorry.
So Mike, when was your first year?
2018.
2018. Great.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, it's awesome what Kevin has done there on that SEMA Central stage, and it wasn't too long ago that the likes of Bud Brutzman showed up there with a TV camera. He didn't tell anybody that he was going to produce television at the SEMA show. We didn't know about it at the organization until it had already aired.
Wow.
Prior to Bud, Barry McGuire was there doing Car Crazy. Before he was doing Car Crazy television, I think he was doing Car Crazy radio, maybe. But he was one of the people that I linked up with early on, and we collaborated beforehand, and were able to work him into the fabric of the show. I remember meeting Bud Brutzman for the first time, and he was like, I got a great idea. We're going to do something huge. What if I bring 7 cars from Overholland and display them at the show? And okay, that was a nice first move, but ultimately we got to a place where it was like, Bud, what if you produce an episode of Overholland at the SEMA show? And that accelerated to this place where there were so many people in the grandstands watching Overhauling being produced at that show that we were afraid that the grandstands were going to buckle. Wow. That was a real thing. And
yeah, it was huge.
When, we like to say people vote with their feet. When you've got so many people in your grandstands that you're afraid they're going to collapse, that's a success.
Yeah. It's definitely a win.
and then fast forward, I went to Brazil, home of Oeste Chevrolet, and back in the day, I would go to Sao Paulo, and Emerson Fittipaldi would pick me up at the airport, and I remember the first time he met me at the airport, and we're at baggage claim, and he looked at me and he goes, "Hey, Peter, do you know Chip Foose?"
Wow, that is great. Yeah.
And it was,
but from
Chip is a wildly famous and successful guy, and he's more so today than he's ever been. And back then, he was wild and famous, but for those of us in Southern California in the media industry, we knew Chip as a car builder and kind of an up and comer. But he wasn't a TV star. And for Emerson Fittipaldi, who is motorsports royalty, and by the way, when you're with Emerson Fittipaldi in Brazil, he's a god.
Well,
I mean, it's unbelievable, the respect that and the just the influence he has there. But for him, the first thing he asked me was like, "Hey, do you know Chip Foose?"
That is so awesome.
I was like, "Are you kidding me? Is this a prank?" But anyway, he was.
Did Chip put you up to this?
he was sincere, and it was and Emerson was putting on a show down there and was looking to have celebrities like Chip be at his show to connect with people in a real way. And I think the rest is history. But that was fun stuff.
Well, and how cool was it in Riyadh to have Emerson and Chip there, and a whole bunch of these others, Bud Brutzman, and just this laundry list of automotive royalty and their specific little sects. That was really, really cool and kind of surreal, because we were all wondering if any of that stuff was going to translate to the Middle East. Would people there know who Emerson Fittipaldi or Chip Foose were? And sure enough, they did.
Yeah, no, and that was really cool to be in a market and an environment that has been closed for so long. And going there, we knew very little about it. I had spent a couple of months there beforehand, so I had a sense. I knew that that they would have an appreciation for it, for the authentic cars and the builders and personalities and brands. I knew that if you had that authenticity, that the people that knew it and have an appreciation for it already would connect and really be all over it. But the people even that didn't, that were more on the fringe, they would get sucked into it. And my sense is that they'll never forget that. They'll never forget that they were surrounded by the biggest names, the biggest builders and personalities in the world for the automotive enthusiast industry. And hey, man, we got to be there and see it all happen. So that was a fun and rewarding part too.
Yeah, it's still pretty surreal to think back of what happened there and how you guys were able to put that show together remotely and then on site with resources that weren't readily known. And if you've been doing this long enough in the U.S. where if we say, hey, let's do a show in Cleveland, you can make a few phone calls and the wheels start turning. But on the other side of the world, in that type of country, you didn't have that luxury.
Well, I have the benefit of knowing some really cool people that are really smart and really talented and resourceful. And I had the backing of Bonnier, which is a company that let me pursue this and be a part of it. And it's awesome when a plan comes together, isn't it? It's I've referred to it a few times as a unicorn, as this kind of once in a lifetime thing, because it was so huge, it was so magical. It's the type of thing that you dream of and wish for. You don't want to be greedy and hope for it again, because how many times do you get to ride a unicorn in your life, right? But be there with Chip and Kevin Oeste and Bud Brutzman and Joe Sabergandio and Ed Tilrock and Max Grundy and just boom, 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 Alan Budnick and Ivan
Jimmy
Stewart
Shine,
and
and Ivan
Jimmy
Stewart,
Shine and Ryan Friedlinghouse, and I mean just all of these, and Emerson Fittipaldi, all of these really cool people that have been with me throughout my career. To be on the other side of the world with them and have them pull with you to make something meaningful happen, that's a dream come true. And so, you just want to hold on to that and embrace it. Man, I'm dreaming about doing it again. I'm excited about that prospect. Once we get behind this short-term interruption in our lives, I'm gonna let myself go to that place, and hopefully we're all going to be able to go back and do new things and bigger things and better things and connect with even more people. We learned a lot this last year, and I really am looking forward to making that dream become a reality once again. And not only there, but all over the place. We get to experience this magic of connecting with people who are enthusiasts, and they just get turned on by the vehicles and the people that we know that create cool vehicles. Or heck, there's people that I don't know that show up at shows and unveil things that I've never seen before that are really cool. That's a big part of this too, that discovery. The breaking the mold and that innovation and that creativity, that's a lot of fun too.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think, early on we were talking about putting a plan together for being an exhibitor or being an enthusiast at one of these events. But I think you need to be open to whatever can happen, because you're not, like Mike demonstrated before, you're not prepared for what you're going to see. And I think when I've talked to other companies and people who go to big shows, even small shows, and they leave and they're like, oh, that was kind of a bummer, kind of a waste of time. And it's like, well, you need to be in tune with opportunities that are around you everywhere. And you need to have these conversations. And you got to, when you bump into people and you say hi to them walking down the hall, you need to do more than just wave. Maybe you need to stop and chat for a minute, because you never know what business opportunity, what relationship, what project, what car, what potential partnership you might get involved in. If you have a closed-minded thing where, no, I just need to get myself to the hotel room and get dinner and go to sleep, you're going to miss all that stuff. So I really love that, like you're saying, that element of surprise and discovery.
It's there, and I did a lot of off-roading and crazy adventure travel in various places, but I wasn't always in Iceland or Borneo or Brazil. I was doing stuff right in our own backyard that was challenging, and you can get yourself knee deep in mud pretty much anywhere. Doesn't have to be exotic mud. It can be right here in good old Massachusetts, and you got to be open for that too, and you've got to embrace that and let that be part of your experience too. Because when you go to other places, mud is mud, to drive through it and it's just as exciting and challenging here as it is anywhere else. So I don't know if that made much sense, but go try it. Go dig a mud pit in your backyard. You'll have a lot of fun. Drive through it.
I don't think my wife would be too happy with me if I did that.
Well, somewhere in your neighborhood, you get
right.
your neighbors
the neighbor's house
together. Yeah.
Right. Him first.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, that is the cool thing about, being able to get involved and the real bummer, another one of the downsides of this situation we're all in right now is it seems like the attendance has been climbing and a number of events has been climbing and people have been more and more excited to go do more stuff, and then we get kind of clamped. So in your world, it's got to be stressful knowing that you've had all these events planned and you're just kind of watching each day go by on each calendar and wondering, when do we make a decision to change something, or who dictates that? Is it a government thing, I guess? Is there going to be a time when, to use the NASA term, the go, no go date, I know that the Bonnier website and the Facebook pages have been doing a really great job of keeping people up to speed on the future events that are coming up, Street Machine Nats being one of them. That's today. It's still scheduled, and people should still be looking forward to that. But for something as big as doing the Global Auto Salon again, you guys crushed that show in a record short period of time. How much time, would it really take if you don't know when you can start?
Well, that not knowing when you can start is key. But in our mindset, we're not half on, half off. We are go, 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 go. Plan, 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 plan. Do it, do it, do it until someone says no.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, we don't make the laws, we don't own the facilities, and so there are people that can tell us no. But up until that time, we are going to be prepared to be there and put on a great show. And my sense is that once this opens up, I don't think people are going to be skittish or nervous about it. I think we're going to have some of the most meaningful shows that we've ever had, because people aren't going to take it for granted, and people have so much pent up appetite for this that they're not going to waste any time being there, and we're going to be prepared for them. We're going to have great cars and great brands and a great show. We're not just sitting on our hands twiddling our thumbs. We are working with our teams to come up with new programs and new elements to our shows. We're not wasting this crisis. We're using this time to come up with better shows, and that way, when people do show up with an expectation, Kev, I want people to leave my event shaking their head in disbelief, like they cannot believe they just experienced what they experienced. I want them to get in their cars or their airplanes or however they're getting home, and I want them to be going, oh my gosh, I can't wait to go back. I never saw that before. So that's what we're doing. And I'm lucky because I work with a lot of really talented people, and we've got a really cool industry that is reinventing itself year after year after year. And so as soon as the floodgates open, I think it's going to be bigger and better than ever, because people are thirsty for it. They're not going to take it for granted. They're going to embrace it, kind of, like they never have before.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think that sentiment, maybe was kind of needed. Yeah, I certainly don't think we needed to go through people getting sick and the economy getting hurt. But,
No.
that little feeling that, this might be your only chance to experience this. So, as Rush said, time stands still. Just give me a chance to soak this in a little bit more. I think that's a good thing, to appreciate those opportunities a little bit more than just walking by going, I don't really care about this. This stuff needs to get in and get under the skin a little bit and stick.
Yep.
Well, that's too cool. And this episode went by very quickly, I think. This was really, really great stuff, Peter. I'm glad you were able to take the time to share some of these thoughts with us. And again, I think we I didn't want to just rehash what everybody else is saying. I think we talked about some things that are some different territory. So thanks for letting us in a little bit on that stuff. But I can hear, I just got a text from somebody in Nauru and Rwanda saying, "What are the answers to these trivia questions?"
I must know now.
Yeah, there's a guy from the Democratic Republic of the Congo that's all upset with me. So, being the guest, you get to go first. Mike and I are pretty much prepared for a loss, but what do you got?
Well, 1993 was the first and only year that the U.S. Camel Trophy team brought home the trophy. And that year, the competition was held in Borneo.
Yeah, they don't get us there.
And that's why we lost the question.
Yeah.
Well, but you know what? There's always tomorrow, Kevin.
This is true.
Maybe all 800 inhabitants of Kalimantan will be tuning in next week.
I always appreciate Peter's optimism. We're not going to get into this story on this episode, but here's a guy who has been in jail in China before. And lived to tell about it. So
we'll have to get that story next time.
Yeah.
All right. So yes, we both lost by many, many years, Mike.
Yeah, a couple,
Me more than
2-3 years. Yeah.
That's right.
Hey, so Kev,
Yeah.
where is the Oeste Chevrolet dealership?
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to let Mike make me mad first by pointing out that I'm going to lose this question too,
Okay.
and then I'll feel much better when I reveal the answer to mine.
Okay, boy. So I asked you in 69 and 70, how would you get a Super Cobra Jet 428 or 429 in a Torino or Mustang, and what would you have to do to get it? And Peter answered, he came around to the answer of write the manufacturer, which is a good guess. Unfortunately, not quite correct. And Kevin said, well, because of the allotment, maybe it was a lottery or first come, first served. Again, a very good guess. Not quite correct, though.
Yeah, Frank.
Yeah. So the way to get a 428 or 429 Super Cobra Jet in a Torino or Mustang in 69 or 70 was you merely had to option the 391 or 430 rear gear.
Now, just stop right there, because that triggered the other components that became the Super Cobra Jet package, which was the oil cooler.
Correct.
And the different, block.
All the drag pack items.
And the drag pack items. That's where he was going with this?
Yes.
I knew that.
If you ordered the 391 or the 430 rear gear, it automatically puts you in the Super Cobra Jet.
Frank. Now, that was a great question, because you positioned that one and made me, you threw me off the scent. I wasn't thinking this was a technical option package thing. I was thinking more process.
I see. Well, good. Thank you, Frank.
I'll take the loss. Graciously, I might add.
Yeah, you're so gracious.
Right. So my question to you was, in what city was Oeste Chevrolet? And I'm guessing it was pronounced the same. It's O-S-T-E. And the answer, the building still exists today. It's at 1065 Commonwealth Avenue in the city of Boston, Massachusetts. How about that?
Oh, come on, Peter.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
I tried so hard to help you out with that one.
1065 Massachusetts Avenue?
No, 1065 Commonwealth Avenue.
Commonwealth.
It's currently a Star Market with an Osco drugstore. So the building's still there.
It's funny. I gotta look this up.
Yeah.
1065.
It's an area that used to be Automobile Row, is what they used to call it. And there was all kinds of dealers back there, Packard and Pierce Arrow, a zillion years ago. And now many of those classic buildings have been repurposed into retail and whatnot.
I know where this is.
I bet you do, yeah. So I thought that was kind of fun. So in order to tailor the trivia question to our guest, I was trying to think, what good Boston automotive trivia is there? And then I stumbled across this potentially distant cousin of mine, perhaps, with
Right.
Chevy dealers. So.
I'll tell you what,
And
Peter, the real sting would have been if you were at that Osco today. That would, that would have been even worse.
Well, it's stranger things have happened. It is not too far. It's within a mile of where I met my wife.
Oh, right on.
Wow.
Believe it or
Right
not.
on.
It's very close.
And your dad was a Chevy dealer, so it all...
And, well, my dad claims to have worked for the longest continually owned Chevy dealership in the country, in the world.
Huh.
Wow.
Which
Which
was
is
that?
which was Thomas McMahon Chevrolet in Williamstown, Massachusetts.
Huh, right on.
I'll be darned. That was a blown trivia question right there.
Yeah.
Well, that is crazy, Kev. I'm going to go take a picture in front of it tomorrow. So,
Right on.
I'm going to buy some orange juice or maybe a quart of oil or something there.
There you go.
But
Over at
good
the Star
stuff,
Mart.
guys.
Yeah. Well, this was a lot of fun, Peter. Thanks for joining us and going along with being a good sport with our trivia question and beating us. And we come to the part of the show where we tell people where they can listen, even though they just did. So, iTunes and Google Play and Stitcher and Podchaser and where else? A whole bunch of places.
Podbean, iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio is a good one. Yeah.
Stitcher, Google Podcasts,
Yep.
Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes. Now playing in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Herzegovina. Yes, indeed.
You've been there, right?
No.
Oh, well, Peter probably has.
Peter probably has.
No, I haven't.
All right. Well, might be a good place for a car show. And on that note, we will wrap this up. Thanks for listening to yet another gravy episode. All gravy episode of Via Radio. We will see you next time, and do whatever you can to keep it under 100. I'm Kevin Oeste. Thanks for listening.